Nursery nurse Jane Hanmer has recently returned from a study visit to the city of Reggio Emilia near Bologna in northern Italy. Reggio has an international reputation for pioneering early education, which is attracting visitors from all over the UK. So, what is so special about Reggio Emilia? If you visit the exhibition of work from Reggio preschools, you cannot help but be struck by the highly creative, child-centered approach. Children's thoughts, feelings and interests take center stage and are highly valued parts of their learning. Words like curriculum and outcomes are anathema to the Reggio approach. Loris Malaguzzi, first preschool director in Reggio, talks about children having 100 languages or ways of communicating, and the school needing to recognize this. Looking at some of Reggio's history also helps understanding the approach.
Well, the history of Reggio is very, very fascinating, and again, it's a warning that you can't just whistle up a Reggio clone. It's just not. It needs to come out of a certain sort of soil, if you like.
Even before the Second World War, a preschool system existed in Reggio Emilia with provision for teachers in service professional development. It was in spring 1945, just after the end of the war, several things happened that were to prove significant. News spread that people were building a school out of the rubble of their bombed-out homes. A local middle school teacher, Loris Malaguzzi, went across to see for himself. He found a community determined to rebuild its children's futures from the ruins of the fascist regime. The school and others like it, which soon opened nearby, were the start of the now internationally famous movement, the Reggio Emilia approach to early education. The city was really focused on what was happening to the youngest citizens. In solidarity with its neighbours, it welcomed hundreds of poor and orphaned children from Milan and Naples. The most pressing issues were hunger, cold and childcare.
Reggio 40 years ago grew out of a very strong left political tradition in that part of northern Italy, Emilia-Romagna, also out of the women's movement or movements by women who were seeking to establish the rights both of women and children.
Between 1954 and 64, 1 million women entered the workplace and the demand for good quality preschooling became a mass phenomenon. Added to this, it was a turbulent time in Italy's history.
At this point there emerged a number of new ideas about the state, about the development of democracy, the commitment of local authorities as organs of democratic life in Italy. And within this framework, the issue of preschools and infant-toddler centres became extremely pressing, and we ourselves contributed to making it extremely pressing.
It was during 1964 that Loris Malaguzzi was appointed as head of the first municipal preschool in Reggio. He already had a reputation as an advocate for young children's entitlement to the highest quality provision. The whole community held meetings to discuss the setting up of the first municipal school. From the outset, Malaguzzi and his staff debated some of the big questions about teaching and learning in developing their approach to early education. They asked questions about the image of the child, what schools are for. Malaguzzi wrote, "When a child is born, a citizen is born," and how we view ourselves as teachers.
Well, Reggio very much questions a sort of dualistic thinking of either theory or practice, or practitioner or researcher. They say, and Carlina Rinaldi says very strongly, and the rest of them do, that theory and practice are inseparable, and that practitioners are reflective researchers. They are learning about learning all the time, because learning is not something we know about, finally. It's something we are constantly finding out new things about. And how do we do that? Through the connection with everyday practice.
What Malaguzzi calls this versatility of research and theory recognizes the contribution to Reggio's thinking of the great educators such as Piaget, Vygotsky and Jerome Bruner.
When I came here, I was so struck by the extent to which these determined women, these highly intelligent, well-trained women, were working with children in a way which was so original and so respectful. I had the feeling they were going to do something to their community. And I thought, without this group of strong women, there would not have been Reggio schools. It is interesting that Loris Malaguzzi knew this, that as he worked with them very hard, expressing the ideas, particularly ideas about negotiating meaning and making kids aware of the fact that when they said something, there should be some reason for saying it.
So what did Jane and her colleagues from two West Midlands nursery schools make of their recent study visit to Reggio?
Here's the best bit though, look. Relaxing.
Is it beginning to change how they think about teaching and learning?
We can learn from the children, and that's how they genuinely viewed it.
They don't see them as empty vessels, do they? They just see them as working along together. And I think we so often just try and put things into children, just fill them up, whereas they want to build this like problem solving, isn't it really, issue to everything. One of the big things in a lot of the lectures was them seeing the adults and children being co-researchers. Do you remember that bit? And they just doing everything together.
And they encourage them to discuss it together, don't they?
I just think they have a whole different philosophy to life, though. One of the teachers said to me something about she just comes here to spend time with the children.
I think it's the love of the whole community, the support of the whole community is what makes it such a success. So we kind of need to get our parents and our community and to learn how valuable children are, how important they are for the next generation.
And to learn that our schools are the future society, aren't they?
That's it. And you put it so much better than that.
The Reggio concepts, placing the child at the centre as a creative, active learner and valuing all the 100 languages the child offers, are being taken on by Bushbury Nursery School on the edge of inner city Wolverhampton, where some of the group work.
After a visit to Reggio Emilia, which I made 2 years ago now, and witnessing the passion that the whole community felt for the learning of the young children, I came back thinking this is what we need in our settings for our most vulnerable children, but for all our children they merit this quality. We firmly believe that the environment is the third teacher. We define areas, but not as a maths area, but an area that's aesthetic, where you might link light and music, so this potential for linking is there. Initially, and still centrally, the phrase that was significant for me was the rich, competent child. And more than ever, in our rapidly changing world, we need children who know what being a learner feels like. And it's crucial that the resources are accessible to the children. Because another big thing for us is that the children have ownership of this nursery, that it's for them and it is theirs.
That's Lilo. What's Lauren doing?
In discussion with parents, family learning was established a few years ago.
This is our final session this term, and what we've done is we've negotiated a programme, and parents and carers have given us a list of ideas that we've put together. We looked at a training resource, and we've talked about how children learn through creativity, and we've tried to introduce those ideas into our work in the sense of negotiating what we do and to encourage the exploration of creativity. We've talked a lot about how the nursery school works and the philosophy that they follow. And what we've been trying to do is to highlight that through practice within our own family learning situation.
Well, I've really enjoyed coming because it's brought confidence out in myself. It's given one-to-one with me and Amber because I've got a couple of other children, and it's something different. I've enjoyed getting into a mess, as you can see, and I've just enjoyed different things that I haven't done before. Like,
I think it's very good because you get a lot of enjoyment coming to work with your children, and it's seeing how they role play and make things, and I think it's really good. I've actually asked Sheila to go on the parent governors, so to keep myself involved with the nursery.
Bushbury values parents as the children's first teachers. They provide excellent role models when the children see them learning alongside them. On the other side of the M6, head teacher Rita Thornbury has employed an artist in residence at her nursery school, just as in Reggio, atelierists are used to develop children's creativity.
Well, when I came to Sandbank, we used the Effective Early Learning programme as a self-evaluation tool to look at the effectiveness of our provision. And together as a team, we identified creativity as an area that we wished to develop further. I wanted an artist to come in and work with the children that appreciated the philosophy of Reggio and had a good understanding of creativity in its widest sense.
Within early years settings, there is a great respect for children's need to work independently, and in that sort of Reggio philosophy as well, about children being strong and competent and rich in potential, and that they can direct their own projects, and they do have great resources within themselves to draw on. I was interested in doing something, because it's the end of the educational year, that was perhaps a bit more intensive, that would really build their skills and sort of move them on a bit and actually challenge them rather than just being comfortable with what they were used to doing.
Jess and nursery nurse Jane Hanmer have created a workshop like the Reggio Atelier in an outbuilding on the playground to resource the project.
We'll just take the tools and bits and pieces down. I just want to cut open the tubing as well.
They began with a visit to Birmingham.
We chose a group of children by talking to the rest of the staff, not just ourselves, who they felt would be interested. And that is what they were amazed with in Birmingham, wasn't it? The size, looking up, the height of everything. They took clipboards with them that they could do drawings if they wished to.
The purpose of the Birmingham visit was to show children that you could have these objects that were decorative or purposeful, that were just much bigger than they were used to, and to challenge them a bit about the scale that they were working on.
Back at Sandbank, Jess and Jane established a working space for the children.
Should we all have a piece of this then to do our drawings on?
Pens though, so you could use one of these pens.
They encouraged them to use acetate and hold their drawings up outside to see where they might eventually site their finished sculptures. Based on the drawings, the children created small models.
Their knowledge of materials was really very limited, so when we were asking them for lists of things that they felt they needed, it included cocktail sticks, cotton wool, string, none of which is suitable for doing large-scale work with. So part of the work we've done has been introducing the children to bigger materials. We've tried to use or collect together materials that mirror the very small modelling materials, so things that were tube-like or sticks, and just give them materials that are bigger, so they're familiar and yet offer new possibilities.
But which materials would work best, and how to fix everything together? All sorts of problem solving and negotiation had to go on, with the support and encouragement of Jess and Jane.
Brilliant!
Once they had met with a group, any of the children playing outside could choose to join in. Most began by wanting to construct something tall, and this led to thinking about how to secure the sculptures into the ground and which tools to use. Some of the children are keen to build even higher. Risk-taking is all part of the creative process within a safe environment, of course.
Do you need to get attention?
Fixing the tubing up high leads the children to experiment with the movement of water, reminiscent of the fountains they saw in the city centre. In Loris Malaguzzi's words, our task regarding creativity is to help children climb their own mountains as high as possible. What might seem to an outsider as simply playing with materials is taken as a serious indication of early learning.
It's time, and this is exactly the shape she used on the smaller version, isn't it, in the workshop?
And it's got the same curve on it, and she's attached them in the same way as well.
Yeah.
That's the curve, and that's got a curve in it as well. It's interesting. The falling of things is the thing that they struggle with, isn't it? It's not even the attaching or which materials to use, it's actually making things stand, isn't it?
They are evaluating what they have done in line with Reggio's concepts of the competent child and the teacher as researcher.
Something to do with water. It was interesting which materials they went for this morning, because they all really loved that copper pipe. I wonder what it is that they really liked about that.
I don't know if it's like the glass beads that they had in the workshop, because things that are shiny or metallic will catch the light.
And I think the weight of it, because they tend to like things that are heavier, don't they? Because, I mean, there was all this plastic pipe. They didn't really look at that, did they?
No. But there's something quite crude about that, is that it's not as an attractive material. There's something quite beautiful about copper piping.
They reflect on what has gone on, just as the children are encouraged to.
I use sticks and gaff tape and white tape and gaff tape. Silver tape is gaff tape and white tape is masking tape. And so my sculpture is hanging on there. I've just drawn it so I could make my own sculpture of it. That's the bricks. So there were bricks at the bottom, and so I stuck them together. So the teacher put them down in the ground, so I stuck them together. And it was all to the top, but not at all of my friends.
It's very important, I think, that we prepare children for the future, and that as teachers we don't just convey knowledge to children, that we enable them to construct their own knowledge.
So sharing and recording what and how the children are learning becomes even more important.
The workshop's been open 2 weeks, and I think it'd be really worthwhile if we had a discussion about how it's been going.
They walked in and they were amazed to see all the things. Actually, Luke made that. You might know Luke makes something fantastic, and he said it's a castle.
Something we noticed outside is when you bring the children out at playtime, what the thing they're interested in is actually going for the hammers and using the hammers and finding out how to use tools in there.
That's what they've said, the hammers and the goggles. That's what all of the children that have accessed have said.
I mean, but that's something we think about for next year, is having that out as a permanent area.
And we've been doing a lot of work with fishing rods, and we found that it was actually the winding
part that they were interested in.
So if you think about that kind of links into the reels and, it's just different mechanisms, isn't it? The things that make other things move. That's something we could explore.
I'd just like to ask how we're all getting on with the PDAs.
So the PDA is allowing us to write an observation on a child, take a photograph of a child, but also to, on their profile, which is on the PC, actually mark the stepping stones.
I mean, when they're interacting with the cells, it's wonderful because you can stand back and you can get a lot.
Which we need to be doing both, don't we, anyway? Sometimes participating, sometimes just as an observer.
Well, the observation really is the key to how we work, is learning from the children and seeing exactly how those children are learning and what they're learning.
Carlina Rinaldi has said that we're on a journey, but that this is not a free journey, rather it is a journey guided by a compass. And at Sandbank, we're at the very beginning of that journey.
Back at Bushbury, observing and recording also plays its part, including documenting learning journeys.
It might be a child that begins by exploring the blocks, but eventually ends up with that child creating huge role-play structures because that's where the learning takes them. Part of what we did is each of the staff chose a child about whom they had a query, a question, something as why and how.
I chose a child in my group called Jack, who it was obvious from the moment he walked through the door he was a very passionate character, and he did develop into a really creative, passionate learner. I went to Reggio Emilia 2 years ago, and I think that's probably that sort of underlying principle was behind our learning journeys for our own professional development, so that we start to look more in depth at how children learn. Well, by observing and monitoring them in this way, because we're doing it constantly all the time, you learn how that child learns, and so it becomes easy then to put resources in and to encourage them. You're building up really so that their journey can progress.
Different children, different interests, different learning journeys. As spring turns to summer, one group becomes fascinated about living outdoors.
We had the children together and explained what they were going to do and where they were going to go.
Just check your list. Make sure you've got everything in your bag off your list, darling. There you go.
We suggested that they made their list of everything that they needed to have a camping visit. And the children did some mark making and pictorially made their lists.
Right, do you think we're ready for our camping expedition then, yeah?
In the Reggio context, the teachers will allow the children to lead the learning. They have no set plan in mind as they reach the woods, but are confident the learning will come from the children's interests.
Do we want the tent on the grass or do we want it on the nutshell?
On the grass.
On the grass now. What do you think? Just behind that big tree. It's sunny. Shall we go and see if it's flat enough to put the tent?
Yes. Hey, how far is over?
Well, we'll try that one next, shall we? We'll try this bit first. What do you think?
Pitching the tent is put on hold as a rabbit hole takes their attention.
Come in here and see.
What makes those tiny little holes?
Snails.
Not more in here. Ants, yes.
Well done.
Pull and I'll pull. Are we ready? Oops!
Their natural curiosity about being in a new place presents them with choices to make and problems to solve.
We do need the hammer, but we need the pegs. That's it. Then if it's a little bit windy, it'll stop the tent from blowing away, won't it?
You fetch your torch out, remember.
Oh, steady.
Steady. What do you think is going to happen when I put the match on the barbecue?
It's going to be hot.
It's going to get very, very hot.
Light barbecue, light.
The children experiment with torches. Do they make the barbecue light? They come across a dead animal, but Tricia doesn't steer them away. The children find a safe place for it.
Let's just move in.
Oh, there's a little green thing.
No, it's sad, isn't it? You'd like to put some in. OK then, CJ.
One child decides to use his torch and magnifying glass to explore the logs. They learn from each other.
They're a bit smaller than our snails at nursery, aren't they? Snails around here somewhere. Can you see the shiny slime?
This way of thinking about the child, the school, the teacher is no academic exercise. It's having excellent results. For example, Wolverhampton LEA's early years recently received the highest possible Ofsted result. Perhaps because, in Loris Malaguzzi's words, it develops the 100 languages of children and gives practitioners something more.
I think one of the main reasons is that it gives people a sense of hope and belonging. Hope in the sense that so much around in education today seems very instrumental and rather managerial and rather dead and dull. And Reggio challenges us to hope for all sorts of possibilities for children and for learning.